This week I have decided I'm going to fire up the flux capacitor and get in the DeLorean because we're going back to the 80s, people. We are going to talk about two John Cusack, in my mind, classic films by the name of Better Off Dead and One Crazy Summer. Better Off Dead has him starring as Lane Meyer, who has everything going for him until his girlfriend dumps him for a character who has the last name Stalin, actually. So you can see the subtlety here. And within losing his girlfriend, he loses everything. He's not popular anymore. He loses his spot on the ski team, and just everything goes downhill. And the film follows him as he tries to get her back necessarily, but also steady his life. I mean, this film started off, it's directed and written by Savage Steve Holland, and it was really based on him in real life. He had thought about committing suicide himself over an ex-girlfriend. I would say it's become more of a cult film than a mainstream film because most people remember the psychotic paperboy who keeps hounding him, "I want my $2. He stalks him throughout this whole film, and I mean, he kind of deserves it. I mean, he did do a job, and all he wants to do is get paid, and this family won't pay him, so I can kind of see it from the paperboy's point of view. Now, throughout the film, he befriends a girl who is a French exchange student and stays next door with her host family, Ricky, and his mother, and they kind of force Ricky on her. Not, God forbid, nothing like rape or anything, but you know, it's supposed to be Ricky's girlfriend, and she pretends not to speak English, but she clearly does. You have Curtis the Man Armstrong, who most of you might know as Booger. Here he plays, you know, John Cusack's best friend. I am an unabashed Curtis Armstrong fan because he's usually the best in any film, good or bad. He's 35 years old in the film, which also makes the line funnier that where he says, "I've been in this school for 7.5 years. I'm no dummy." You know, the film is insanely quotable, and if you look in the back of one scene at Christmas, one of them actually gets I think it's Kiwi from Buck Rogers as a present. I'm not talking a replica. This is the actual robot from the film. And on the basis of the test screenings from this film, the studio execs gave Savage Steve Holland a bigger budget and wanted to lock him up for his next film, One Crazy Summer. But the funny thing is, this film bombed hard. Now, here's the thing that breaks my heart about these films, that John Cusack hates this film. Now, before he even started filming One Crazy Summer, which he signed up for, they screened the film for him, and he walked out after 20 minutes and told Savage Steve Holland that this was the worst film he's ever seen in his life, and that he ruined him, even though they got along when they were filming Better Off Dead. And from that point on, Steve Holland kind of knew this was going to be a very rough shoot. This film focuses on, I don't remember John Cusack's character's name, but John Cusack decides after he graduates from high school to go with his friend to visit his friend's beach house in Nantucket. His friend is played by Joel Murray, and he meets all the zany characters who his friend knows and his family, because again, in this film we have another sibling who is the coolest character in the movie but says nothing the whole film really. So in this film they pick up Demi Moore, who is a singer. You're getting me correctly, she plays a singer in this film. The songs are not that bad, but I think it's also because they don't rely on her voice as much, because come on, it's the 80s, it's mostly synthesizer, and it sounds futuristic. In this film, we are forced to believe that there's this beautiful girl who wants, not Demi Moore mind you, who wants John Cusack's character, but he doesn't want her. So again, film logic. Basically, we follow their misadventures at the summer house with Bobcat Goldthwait and Tom Villard playing these two mechanic brothers who are a little out of it. Now, again, this is another one with the more zany, spoofish type of comedy, but it strangely works here again. And even though John Cusack doesn't like these films, I like them. I think they're hilarious, and I mean, they're obviously a perfect time capsule to the 80s, but I think they still stand out. And I think, if anything, it more shows John Cusack at his best because he still grounds his character in reality despite what's going on around him. And I think it shows a better range than his dramatic work because here he doesn't seem as controlled as he usually does when he's acting in other films. That is what I like. I like to see an actor working without a net. I don't have as much to say about One Crazy Summer. It's still a good film, but Better Off Dead is, I would have to say, the better film. Even though here he's working with a bigger budget and a bigger cast, I guess like how Better Off Dead is more of a personal film to him, you know, so he has more to say. This film is good, but it just doesn't seem personal. But I'd like to talk about, as we end this episode or come to a close, or about Better Off Dead. It's the female co-star in the film is Diane Franklin, and she is just so good in this film, and she plays a French exchange student, and she speaks spot-on French and speaks with a spot-on French accent when she speaks English, but she's American. That's the thing that kills me. So it shows the depths of her talent, and she starred in another quintessential 80s teen film by the name of The Last American Virgin, which is the most depressing teen film you will ever see in your life. But other than those two films, you see her here and there, like in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. She was in Amityville too, and she was in, I remember specifically, a TV movie starring Patty Duke. And she was in a movie that is horrible but actually has a cult around it called Terror Vision. And she was actually in another Savage Steve Holland film that he made that he didn't write, that was called How I Got Into College. It was made in '89, which was 4 years after this film, and she strangely played somebody's stepmother. But, you know, that was really kind of the end of Savage Steve Holland's feature filmmaking career. He went on to direct a lot of television shows and develop a lot of television shows, mostly centered around teenagers. Like now like a show called Big Time Rush. He came out with a cult cartoon show called Eat the Cat, because he did do all the animation in both films, animated sequences, so he is a talented illustrator. And he also did a show that I actually enjoy called The Adventures of Beans Baxter, which was about a high school age spy who took over after his father died. And I mean, I have nothing personally against John Cusack, but I'd more want to take credit for these films than, let's say, a film like War Inc., which was a comedy he wrote. And I'm sorry, John, I respect you as an actor and sometimes as a writer, but that was a piece of crap. So that finishes this business for this week, but as you know, we always have plenty of unfinished business, and I appreciate you guys with your comments and questions that you write on YouTube and on the Facebook page. Please keep it coming, and as long as you guys keep it going, I will keep coming back with more shows for you. And remember, everybody, I want my $2. Okay.
Good one, Jim. All right, that's stop for this one?
Yeah.
This is actually really visually great.
I just wish I could stop sweating.